politics cause. Before we get started, I would like to introduce our convener, Mrs. Olawumi Heavens, and she'll be giving her opening remarks. But before she starts, let me just read a short bio about her. Heavens, with over 4,000 trained persons to her name. She's also a media entrepreneur. She has a combined honor in history and education, with other certificates in digital media, human resource management, project management, communication, and much more. Her work in the INGO and NGO community spans over 21 years. She has held various positions with international organizations like Junior Chamber International, KH Africa, UNSYA, Africa Achievers Awards, and many more, with commendations and awards of acknowledgement. She is passionate about women and youth empowerment. She believes in development through synergy and active participation. She's the convener of African Women in Politics Arise. So please welcome with me Olawumi Heavens, the convener of AWIPA, to give her opening remarks. You're welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I would like to say welcome, welcome, welcome to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This is just a beautiful day because it's one of those days that I've been waiting for in terms of having that conversation. When it comes to AWIPA, African Women in Politics, it is just a platform that wants to basically serve as a bridge between women in politics and those things that they need. Because over time, I realized that having spoken to whether it's women in politics with disability or a cross-section of women, I realized that a lot of them, number one, some don't have information, they don't have the know-how to transition between where they have been over the decades, being experts, whether in the INGO, NGO field or in their businesses and doing a lot for the society. They can't seem to find that ready-made information to transit between where they have been and into the political sphere. Also, we realize that for some people, it's that they have all it takes in terms of intellect, they have the strategy, but they don't have the financial, capacity to do it. So we're that proverbial bridge between those who have it, the donors, whether it's their branding, whether it's their training. So we try to partner with so many different platforms to ensure that it happens because we believe, honestly, I believe in synergy. No man, no organization is an island. We need synergy to make it happen in this season. And for me, this particular topic, maybe because I'm a second generation media person and I've been in media for over 15 years, in fact, I tell people beyond over other things that I do, people know me for events, but it's my first love, media, because media is indeed a springboard for every other sphere of influence. Media has a huge say. It's almost like a magic wand effect when it comes to other spheres of influence, if they can take advantage of what media presents. And so this topic is very dear to my heart, and I am just so excited. I'm not a speaker on the platform today, but I'm so excited about the caliber of people we have on today to share with us from their experience. Thank you so much, Ms. Ozo, for the opportunity. The floor is yours.
All right, thank you so much, Mrs. Heavens. And indeed, media is indeed a springboard to bridge that gap that we're talking about, bridging between, well, just trying to create that bridge that will help the politicians, people who are trying to get into politics, people who are excited about it, just trying to help them with a platform where they can do whatever they want to do. All right, without taking much of our time, I would like to call on the very first speaker. But before I introduce her, I would like to read this short bio about her. This is Dr. Yemisi Akipobola. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. She's an award-winning journalist, academic, consultant, and co-founder of African Women in Media, AWIM. AWIM's vision is that one day African women will have equal access to representation in media. She's the joint winner of CNN African Journalist Award 2016 for sports reporting. She ran her news website, IQ for News, between 2010 and 2014. Yemisi holds a PhD in Media and Cultural Studies from Birmingham City University, where she is a senior lecturer. She has published scholarly research on women's rights, African feminism and journalism, and digital public spheres. She was editorial consultant for the UN Security Council Resolution 1325 commemorative book titled She Stands for Peace, 20 Years, 20 Journeys. She also currently hosts the book's podcast, relating to gender and media. In 2021 or 2021, she was recognized as one of 100 most influential women, African women. Please welcome with Lucy and Akimbo Boala. Sorry. Thank you, ma'am, for honoring. Thank you, ma'am, for honoring our invitation.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for that introduction. A great achievement that you guys are having with this platform. So thank you. In my presentation today, I'll first of all present some facts around gender parity generally, and it's great that we started off about talking about gaps. Before I go on to talk about media representation and also the important issue of digital media inclusion, my consideration of women politics is not just in terms of, also in terms of active and meaningful participation of women politics and civic life. So, according to a recently released 2022 Global Gender Gap report, the global gender gap has been closed by 68.1%. And the rate of progress, which reflects a 4-year improvement compared to the results last year, still indicates that reaching that full gender parity will take 132 years. For gender parity in politics, political empowerment closed by 22% in this year's reports, which, while it looks positive, is no change from last year. And at this current rate of progress, the data suggests it would take 155 years to close political empowerment gender gap. In sub-Saharan Africa, we're ranked 6th as a region out of 8 in how far we've closed the gender gap, and the regional score being 68.7%. And I must apologize, I can hear my youngest child running upstairs and screaming, so apologies. So the regional score is 68.7%, which is the highest gender gap score we've attained in 16 years, and which means that at this rate, it will take us 98 years to close the gender gap in the region. Somebody needs their mic put on mute, thank you. So the Global Gender Gap Index 2022 rankings placed Nigeria at 123 out of 146 countries globally, and 27 out of 36 African countries ranked in the report. And according to the report, the widest gap that Nigeria has to close is political empowerment, which has been widening since 2012 and currently stands at 96%, with Nigeria ranked 141 out of 146 globally. And Nigeria is ranked 143 and 118 for women in ministerial positions globally. And while there have been so far 22 African women who have been heads of states on the continent, none have been from Nigeria. And we can't have this conversation also without outlining the positions of young women in politics. The African Union estimates that almost 75% of Africa's population is under the age of 35, while UN Women estimates that by 2030, the share of Africa's youth in the world will increase by 42%. However, the representation of young people in politics across Africa is low when compared to their population. And for young women, entering politics or actively participating in politics is even more difficult, with the intersection of their gender and their age formed as barriers. But despite these barriers, research does suggest that opportunities for young women to participate actively in politics and decision-making is growing. So I started with these facts to demonstrate to us exactly why this conversation on women in politics is critical and also very timely, because the gender gap that we see in political representation play a significant role in addressing that wider gender gaps in other parts of society. And this is important because empirical research also demonstrates that having more women in political leadership positions result in policy decisions and actions that represent a larger majority of the population. And also really important, it creates a powerful role modeling effect. That is, people that see other women in leadership can aspire to such positions. And this is where media representation comes in. Media coverage given to women's issues globally and the current limited state in which it happens contributes to its underrepresentation of women in politics, civic participation, and political leadership. Instead, the representation of women in politics is often stereotypical of the social construction of gender roles in that society. Therefore, the agenda setting function of the media can be argued to play a significant role in the underrepresentation of women in political leadership and decision-making. Now, historically, in previous research, one of the frames that research shows media use in coverage of women in politics is known as trap roles. And there are 4 roles under these trap roles. There's the seductress, the mother, the mascot, and the Iron Maiden. More recent research suggests that the framing of women in politics has shifted towards things like being the first, so the first woman to do X. And what that creates is a narrative of an anomaly, as if this woman is kind of different to other women. That's why she's managed to achieve this. There's also the framing of a newcomer. So which again, in terms of the narrative, means that you find media questioning the woman's ability because she's a newcomer or underestimating her ability. So I could go on and on about the various academic research and interpretations of media discrimination of women in politics. But the conclusion I'm really trying to present here is that in so much as media portray women in politics through a gendered lens, they other them and contribute to reducing their candidacy to their gender. And this, coupled with the limited allocation of time given to female candidates compared to their male colleagues, to the limited voices of women being presented in media discourse as experts in their field, to the excessive attention paid to their appearance, right, and their personal life compared to their male colleagues, which often results in them getting asked gender insensitive, like how you're home while you're running for office, right? So this contributes to the wider narrative and societal position of women as secondary. So when we speak about media's representation of women in politics, we're speaking both in terms of quality of media coverage, but also the quantity of media coverage. The invisibility, so invisible, the invisibility of female politicians, of young women political aspirants, and women's participation in civic life limits the potential for that role modeling effect that I mentioned earlier. And the stereotypical representation in media content more broadly furthers that narrative that positions women in a supportive and caring role, and therefore doesn't help citizens to see that a woman can lead the country successfully. This means young girls and women cannot see themselves in those positions, and the wider population continue to perpetuate perspectives on gender roles that need real refinery in the 21st century. So the language and the framing of women in political life and women's political participation must first recognize and then eliminate the patriarchal and stereotypical fashion it currently operates. There are many aspects of life that I could use to further highlight the problematic nature of media bias and discrimination towards women in politics. But in the interest of time, I will focus on one issue that is really enveloping the country right now, and that is peace and security. Because the women in politics is not just about them becoming politicians, but about their voices and their participation being enabled in environments where key political decisions are made. Women and girls are disproportionately impacted by conflict. And although the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325 and the subsequent resolutions have sought to continue to move the women, peace and security agenda forward to ensure that women are included as equals in peace, security and political leadership, inconsistencies in policy implementation and the limited engagement of media with critical and important instruments like the Women, Peace and Security Agenda means that women's participation in formal peace building processes, especially when it comes to political decision making and action, is still very limited. So just to paint you a bigger picture of how limited this is, UN Women reviewed 31 major peace processes that took place between 1992 and 2011. 16 of these were in African countries. And they found that only 4% of signatories, 2.4% of chief mediators, 3.7% of witnesses, and 9% of negotiators were women. For 5 of the 16 African peace talks included in the analysis, women's participation was a grand total of 0% in all areas, 0%. More recently, in October 2020, the network of African women mediators known as FemWise Africa, they had a knowledge exchange session, and Ambassador Giniti of Algeria, he said, and I'll quote him, he said, "To date, there have been no women-led mediation processes in Africa, and yet women are actively mediating at the grassroots level in almost all conflict zones." Peace and security is a critical issue for Nigeria and a clear example of how the negative impact of limited or biased coverage of women's perspectives, the limited representation of women as experts, the limited media engagement with critical peace and security instruments like the Women, Peace and Security Agenda further contributes to ensuring that women are not able to achieve the level of participation and political leadership as they should. Also, let's talk about digital inclusion, because digital access and digital spaces are key parts of participation in political and civic life, out of media coverage and reporting of all of this. And just for those, just to explain a little further, digital inclusion is the affordable access to internet, including meaningful use of digitally enabled services. So digital inclusion is measured through examining specific communities' access to digital technologies, digital literacy levels, and consumer safety in digital spaces, along with improved education, civic engagement, and application of digital technologies and increased participation in peace and political processes. So to achieve digital inclusion, it means that we need to do more to eliminate things like the costs and reach of access to digital tools, so that women of all walks of life can participate in politics. Developing things like digital voting mechanisms is also a critical aspect of this. Similarly, during the pandemic, we saw how several countries, transferred their parliamentary proceedings online and were working with more flexible hours, which made women's inclusion in that civic life more inclusive as well. Now, online political participation for women is not without its challenges, and we see this with the levels of online violence that women in politics experience on social media, with insults, hate speech, threats of physical harm, including sexual violence, and doxing. So doxing is where people search for your private information, your number, your home address, and they post it online. Just to name a few examples of the type of online violence that women in politics and women in media experience. So all of these factors I've talked about today, from the bias and the discriminatory media coverage to the limits of digital inclusion and online violence perpetrated on women in politics on social media platforms, they all combine to form barriers to women's meaningfully, and that's really a critical word, meaningful participation in politics, and subsequently the extent to which the populace can accept that a woman is a viable presidential candidate for Nigeria. So I didn't start this presentation with an introduction of myself, so let me end with it. I'm Dr. Yemisi Akimbobola, Senior Lecturer at Birmingham City University and co-founder and CEO of African Women in Media. My work is centered on the belief in gender equality in and through the media as a critical aspect of societal development. My presentation today on the media and the representation of women in politics builds on this. And as we further our conversation, I want us to also consider how the patriarchal power relations that exist in media organizations themselves limit women journalists and the potentials they hold for media organizations' adequate coverage of women's political participation. A 2021 research in Nigeria found that male journalists report 67% of stories on politics and government in the country. So my call for media organizations to be cautious of the inequalities that exist for their female employees should not also be interpreted as an opportunity to place the onus on them, on the women journalists, to address the inequalities in media coverage of women participation in politics, but as a recognition that because of the history of hostility that women in political life have experienced either through the media or on social media, they will understandably be mindful of their visibility in media. So part of my work is to build the capacity of women journalists and women politicians to be able to speak to media and engage meaningfully towards an improved and an enabling environment where they do not have to be afraid of how their voices and their appearances will be portrayed in media. And one of the other ways in which African Women in Media, my organization, is contributing to increasing the voices of women in political life is through our expert database called SourceHer, which is a platform where African women experts can be discovered by media and sought after to offer their expert voices on key issues. I'd like to conclude my presentation today with some words from Dr. Phumzile Mlambo Nguka, who is the former executive director of the UN Women and former deputy president of South Africa. And she said, when women suffer this violence online, the aim is no different than offline. It is to control, to assert power over, to silence, and to keep women out of the conversation or from participating and benefiting equally from that space. Thank you for listening to me today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yemisi. Wow, quite informative. I've learned so much from what you just said now, and it's really important to give women the voice that they deserve to make an impact in this world, especially in the political sphere. And please, yes, thank you. So please, if you have questions, just start noting them down, because towards the end of the meeting, or towards the end, once you have heard all our speakers, there will be time for questions and answers. So if you have any questions, it would be nice for you to start noting them down so that we can ask them questions collectively. All right. Okay, moving on. We have a special guest who has joined us on this meeting today, and well, she's she's not one of our speakers, but you know, she heard about the meeting and wanted to join in, and it's such an honor to have her join us. And she is Juliet Mahapila. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Oops, it's like she just left. Oh, she's here. All right. She is a London Regional Executive Inclusion and Diversity Lead Champion. She's the founder of Black Lead Dem, founder of UK Africa Diaspora Forum, North London Kenya Group. She's a transformational leadership trainer. She's also a social impactor, philanthropist, international consultant, social scientist, poetician, model, presenter, change maker, and African Wonder Woman. And she's also a presidential aspirant in Kenya, in Kenya's upcoming election. And I would like to welcome Juliet Mahapila. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Welcome to the platform. and she has a few things to say about media and politics, the role of media in politics. You're welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Chineye, Ozo, and of course, I want to appreciate the presence of Ola Fume, Heavens, and the convener of African Women in Politics, and I'm absolutely delighted to be here and just hearing Dr. Yemisi Akin Mbombola. I hope I've said it right and you got my name right. I'm absolutely lovely, feeling honored just to quickly snip in here and hear the topic here today, which I find very absolutely a key essential to understand, because media in politics, and especially when it comes to the she person, is absolutely important. And when I saw this, I actually saw it today in one of the WhatsApp group, and I had to share it because I felt the presence of this beautiful topic that you have decided to bring out at this very moment, an African Women in Politics conversation. So I was asked, I squeezed in, and I just want to again appreciate Ola Wumi, because this is a topic that I really want us to do learning and sharing, and really, really grateful to squeeze in. So I won't take much of your time, but the role of women, and especially in politics, or the role of media in politics, let's say. So one of the key areas I was thinking is, I think our previous Dr. Yemisi has touched on it, and you can see the hostility that is touched on women. So let's take it from there and see what is really, not just even in London, but or United Kingdom, or even in Kenya or Africa, and shape up what we really get. And me standing in the Kenyan politics, let me say, is quite an interesting one. And I'm delighted that I put my name forward. And of course, I'll appreciate the presence of Republican Liberty Party, and that's where my ticket is. But let me say, the hostility that is faced towards women is something that I want us to be really, really conscious about. And so I will take it from a political angle, and what the role of media in politics should be, and when you see women standing. So think about it in the agenda of the 2030, or the UN framework, where we are trying to increase the number of women that are coming forward for political leadership. And I want to remind every present person here today the importance of supporting women leadership around the world, the importance of respecting women courageousness to come forward, making that decision, and boldness and the bravery of women coming down and enhancing the development of good leadership. And I want to remind people where we are, and especially in African politics, after many, many years. And in Kenya, it's 59 years of political leadership. And if you go in, and some of you check on my campaigns, it's something along let's take home, let's send home many of the politicians who for years have not gotten it right in our countries. And we have old politicians and recycled politicians. That's a message that I gave as a woman. And you can imagine what I get from the media politicians, because I have said something like that. So let's start from there. So I want to appreciate the presence of bloggers, the presence of partnership of bloggers, who many of them are on what I call survival mode. And I want to ask media bloggers to understand the essence of good, how could we say, good media partnership. And what you find is many of them have either taken sides. They are paid from one side, and especially with the old politicians who have essentially, what we can say, grounded the politics of Africa. So I want to just, this is why I really had to squeeze in this topic here today. And I just really felt that I wanted to be in here with you. I'm interested very much in the development and the political sphere in Africa, because the media politics and presence needs to be supported with good politics across Africa. I would love to see the youth being supported with understanding that they have their voice and not being influenced by bad politics. Our youth are here for today. Our youth need good, they need to be blogging in what they feel, not what they are told to do. And some of these horrible, let me say, a terrible kind of media that we can sometimes say in search of food on the table for media partners can effectively see the hunger that these kind of bloggers, so they're just on one side, and then from there they move into this side in search of food. And so what I'm saying here today is the role of media in politics should be very conscious of what you're doing to our nations across Africa, what your presence as a patriotic citizen in your country, and your role is there to support the truthfulness, the search of great leadership, the search of good leadership, and this idea of just being paid heavily and sometimes enhancing the development of politicians who have for years not developed, I feel needs to be questioned. And this is why I decided here today to squeeze myself and plead with our conveyor here today to squeeze me in all for me. So I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for this slot, just to bring the kind of idea that our media partners and all the media bloggers around the world, when it comes to African politics, think very well. Ask yourself certain questions. Ask yourself questions that you are also a citizen in the same system that sometimes is exploited and sometimes has tribulations and sometimes needs effective alternative change. I want to play here today to all the politicians, to all the wonderful young people and youths who are bloggers. Some of you are great in your kind of thinking, but here today I want us to bring in that kind of idea of understanding what it is in good journalism, what it is in good media, what it is in good politics, what it is for you to effectively allow other candidates to come on board and allow other candidates to be able to come in and be who they are, fresh politics, I call it, and allow many more candidates to join in the and become politicians and come into this level ground playing field. I will leave it there for because I can see my 4.5 minutes, but I want to celebrate every great journalist that is effectively also doing their work very well, because it is important that we support these youths and what it is, the hungerness, and this is why I'm calling it one of the first job is to ensure that media coverage and the talents of these young people, we take it on board, because many of them are talented, but many of them are bought. So I'll stop there. But media politics and the role of media in Africa is absolutely present. And finally, the issue of peace. Media, the media people must be always understanding their voices. And you can imagine the changing patterns that is happening in the 21st century as you lead the way. Some of you have got great followers. Think about peace in our countries. Think about greatness in our country. Think about Mama Africa and Love Africa. I thank you all for listening, and I appreciate your platform. And let's keep this conversation going in the right direction. Respect women. Respect every African woman that comes in on board to stand. I tell you what, I'm one of the first women to stand in Kenya who has, I'm the third, but in finishing the line, so there's nominations and then you come on board. But let me tell you, it is not easy. I can say that for sure. And I want every courageous woman to come forward. We need to be supporting the women. We need to love them and be with them. Thank you so much, Conveyor. Back to you, Chineye. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Juliet. Wow, that's really awesome. So much to say. I wish you had more time to talk too. Yeah, so indeed, it's important for media not to take sides, but to have the development of the country as priority. So yes, it's very important. Thank you so much for taking out time to join us. And hopefully you stay till the end so that if people have any questions to ask you, they'll be able to ask. All right, thank you so much. All right, moving on, it's time for us to hear our second speaker. And I can't see him on okay, he's there. All right, I'd like to introduce our second speaker. He's Benjamin Ubiri. He's also known as the Pen Pusher. He's a media consultant, broadcaster, poet, and an award-winning writer and critic. He's the winner of the 2009 Literary Journalist of the Year Award by the Association of Nigerian Authors. His literary reviews, poems, and short stories have been widely published, both online and hard journals. He has also edited books by other authors and presented papers at workshops around Nigeria. Ben, who is popularly known as Ben 200, half human, half amazing, was the head of air personalities at Nigeria Info FM Abuja. His experiences span from being a newspaper journalist to a radio presenter, book editor, TV presenter, and public speaker. He's also a master of ceremonies of international repute. He's currently the head of station for We FM, King's Broadcasting. He's married to Helen and they have 3 wonderful children. Please welcome with me to take the floor, Ben Ubiri. You're welcome, sir. Thank you for joining us.
You're muted.
Sorry,
sir.
we can't hear you. Mr. Ben, we can't hear you. Please unmute. Okay.
We still
Sorry,
can't hear you, sir.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir, perfectly.
For accommodating me on this panel. Thank you. But the issues have already been raised, particularly very deeply by Dr. Yemisi, and I thought that that was a good tips for Nigeria. What does that say for women? And I told somebody in response, I said, yes, there's a rise in participation of women in politics around the world. Nigeria also is growing. It may not be reflective in people who have won elections or people who have become appointed, but the truth is knowledge has widened, more acceptance, and more women know their rights, know who to vote. and know now that they don't have to consult with anybody to choose who they want to vote. So for me, that's some progress already that we're looking at. But so that we don't sound too textbook, I have a paper, but I feel tempted not to speak to, and not to even read it, but to just look at some of the issues that I have raised. And I've looked at, as a reporter growing up, I know that my major beat was politics. And the political parties in themselves have a structure that puts a woman somewhere away. We have what appears to be something that will support women, but it pushes women to a biased end. You have a structure that says women leader. So it looks like you have one place that a woman must occupy. But I would challenge you to see that at some point I was a reporter in Katsina State between 1998 and 2001. And the Commissioner for Women Affairs in Katsina State was a man. And people didn't see it as wrong. It was like we didn't have anybody to occupy the position in the cabinet. Things will have changed between that time and now. But let's focus also on a few other things that I just listed because of time. We also understand that basic issues like money will play a key role in elections, whether we like it or not, whether we believe that women get free tickets to run. You don't run. It's not like they give you a ticket. Even if you get a ticket to fly from here to Lagos, you still have to board a cab from your house to the airport, and then you still have to lodge. So a lot of things around money issues have also not been addressed. We have seen people give out expression of interest form for free. We've seen campaign costs go up for women more than it is for other people. I also listed issues like societal factors. Our culture continues to play a role. Even our laws, we have issues around marriage, issues around indigenship. I know that somebody had gone to the court to fight an issue around where should the woman, for instance, in Nigeria, contest elections? If she is married, should she be allowed to contest in her father's place, or should she be contesting in her husband's place? These are issues that are still being debated at top level. We've also talked about other disadvantages, that like assigning men to leadership roles. House chores continue to play a big role. It may not be constitutional. A lot of women have moved beyond house chores to having house helps, but you still have some men who just tell you that you still have a role in that domesticated environment. We still have people who, I think it was Dr. Emisi who mentioned the issue of threats, hate speech, and other things that happen. Yes, they are still there. But for me, I want to draw an analogy to two things. One of them would be the women in themselves, and the other would be the media. So while I have talked about politics, let me also reflect a little on women in media. We have seen many women who want to be part of what they do. But if you look at generally the newsroom, I run a media outfit here where I can confidently say we have programs tilted towards women education. We also have leadership positions. My head of admin and accounts is a woman. My head of marketing is a woman. My head of programs is a woman. My news editor is a woman. And we have worked comfortably well. But we have also had situations where some newsrooms are structured in such a way that the woman is ordinarily sent to Women Affairs to cover Ministry of Women Affairs. The woman is structured to follow a female politician. The woman is also calculated in a way that she closes earlier, probably because she's married. Her husband will be at home waiting for her, so they tell her no night assignments. No, so you see certain things beginning to happen. So my suggestion will be primarily, while we worry as women, we must not approach the issues as weak. And that's what I see every time. People just say, okay, you want to make an excuse for me. I still see women who tell their husbands, please, you bought the car, yes, or I bought the car, but the car issues are not my own. I want to see a woman roll up her sleeves and also change her tires. That's the way I want us to approach politics. That's the way I want us to approach issues around media. There's still poor coverage, yes, around media issues, but there are alternatives. And this is my suggestion. Compensation justice is one key issue that people play in politics. It must be that you have suffered something, or you have been marginalized, or you have supported the party over time, so that when it becomes time to compensate people, they give you a role. They make you either a minister or they give you a ticket to run on the party. Women must understand that we must begin to create that structure, that even if it's mere compensation, it puts us in a position that we are able to get that reward. So how many women, for instance, join community meetings with their idea of learning leadership? How many women, for instance, participate in community development groups with the idea that someday this can begin to turn around my situation? So I am approaching it as a very parochial issue, because we may speak a lot of policy, a lot of issues around general international norms, but the basic issues around who we are, where we belong, must begin to count if we have to make global sense. Policies are there, protocols are there, conventions, and even quota. For instance, Rwanda and South Africa have worked very hard to turn quota into something that's meaningful for women to succeed. In Nigeria, we are beginning to work at that. But first, you must have a structure. And I'm not talking about a big national structure. You must belong to a process that says, if 10 people are making a decision about this party, how many of us are women? I'm from the smallest unit, from the ward, not a woman leader, not a youth leader, but a woman who has participated in the party politics as somebody who is competent and who understands it. So I would list about 4 things that I offer as suggestions. And I say to women generally, every time I meet them, I said, look, take advantage as a people, as an individual, not as a woman. Participate in the process. Now, so when you sit down to discuss privately as women, we approach the issues as they affect us, but when we come out to provide the solution as a human being and allow people to know that this solution is coming from a woman, but don't throw it at them, making it look like because I am a woman, I am preferring this solution. Offer that solution as a human being. People will identify you as a woman and give you credit for doing what you have done. If we must be open. In the open, we approach these issues, but in private, we discuss the issues as women, yes. But when we come out, and allow me to use the word we, I'm a he for she, they allow me to talk as a woman sometimes. I also say that we should try and open the spaces. Open the spaces. So we need to organize. What do we need to do? First, let's come together and talk to women about, particularly at that smallest level, tell them what they mean. Women who just go to vote because they say go and vote. I still meet a lot of women who will go on election day. Now, these are not even people who are running for office. These are people who want to go and vote. So if as a woman, I don't know who to vote until I consult with my husband, how much do I therefore need if I am contesting? How many women can I drag therefore to support me? So basic foundational issue. Let's talk to women about the fundamentals of politics. Why even a housewife has a role as a voter, has a role as a candidate. I have seen men who leave their role in politics for their wives because their wives are more competent. And that's my second suggestion. Let's mobilize at the grassroots level, but let's unite first. First to choose the candidates. I'm running because of time. If we agree as 20 women, and we are 20, all of us seemingly qualified, and we agree that there is a position for House of Representatives, and 20 of us say, look, who is best qualified among us for this office? And we all come out and support that one woman. That woman is likely to succeed because we give her that support. But if all 5 of us come out and say, or 20 of us come out and 5 say, look, I think I'm also qualified, without that initial discussion, it will be a big problem and men are likely to take it over from you. So I'm saying, put first, select the best, and truly the best. And the best may not be the one who has stayed in the political party the most. The best also may not be the boardroom woman alone, because there's also that discrepancy. Sometimes the boardroom women think they are more qualified, more educated, more politically, more exposed. And let me go there and fail. There must be that everyday political politics. There must be an agreement, because you need both the sense of the street and the correctness in the boardroom to be able to win in this political space. So you must draw together to agree. And that agreement is key towards making more women succeed in politics. I also think that women should identify women with abilities and then sell such candidacies. I think also we should discuss general issues. I go into a lot of meetings, and this is one of such temptations, to begin to think that the discussion is around how women are disadvantaged. The truth is, if you look at the general society, men on some issues are disadvantaged, boys are disadvantaged, girls are disadvantaged. So can we deal with these issues with a semblance that it's a universal problem and there is a universal solution that is coming? Women, sure, are disadvantaged, but when we discuss this issue, first, before the men, take it, I'll say again, thank you very much for bringing me into this, because it's an advantage. But when we are talking, I've gone into many meetings, sneaking into many meetings with the challenge that I say, okay, can we have more women, more men in this space? Sorry, I am trying to cut off a call. All right, I'm still with you. I just said, we discussed the issues generally, and first the issues before us, and then before treating them as women, if we have these issues come up that we have to discuss, can we look at them and say, this is a general issue? So we provide solution, and then you will see that when you're solving a general issue with a general solution, you will naturally solve the problem as it affects women. Propose solutions and let the people understand that these solutions are coming from women. And I talked about taking advantage as a people in the open and discussing in private as women. Open the spaces, accommodate more men, let them pick notes, let them organize, let them also arrogate roles. Don't just make it look like, okay, you make this man a he for she because the big man is properly positioned. Make him a he for she, or give him a role to play. Discuss the issues in his presence and get feedback from men. I also want to add that while we're discussing these issues, let us also be able to bridge the gap between the boardroom professionals and the street politicians. I think I mentioned that. I also will want to conclude on the note that we should spread, but we should unite. So if 20 women come together and they say we want to join politics, can we agree to say, for instance, that can we join party A, party B, party C with key roles, while having that universal idea in mind that we are women and the goal is that women should succeed. So if we have, so we must, that means we must spread beyond political enclaves. Some men, or the men, have been able to do that, so that they are telling you to defect from your own political party to join their own so you can be a flag bearer. But women are not quoted in that way. So it's a big challenge that we can resolve as we move on. But this is my suggestion also to you. So we will support policies, we will support political parties, but we'll also be able to draw from the strength from different people in different parties. Networking is what they call it, but I call it opening, spreading, and uniting. Mentorship is also something that people talk about, but I'm seeing mentorship as a different way. Not just allowing people to be your mentees so that they can help you achieve your own dream, but making them your mentees so that you can support their own dreams. I've seen a lot of people draw up mentees, have a whole network of mentees, many of them, but the idea is for me, for them to work for me so that I become what I want to be. Get mentees that you can pour yourself into, teach them what to do, spend money on them, support their ideas, support their dreams, and you will see a reverse of the roles that we are worried about. As for media, I want to advise people generally, please let us not make it look like the media is a paid media, so people will just look at them and say, yes, they have been paid, that's why they are following the big parties. No, sometimes, and I will say this authoritatively, the media man, I'm wrapping up, I say, whether you're a man or a woman, if you do something newsworthy, the media will report it. Now, that's the first line. The second rule is, if you do something, if you do have a network, a relationship with the media, so don't wait until you want to contest before you now become friends with the media. You create a network of friends, like you have friends. You have the media as your friend. So if you create a network with the media, when it becomes your turn to be reported, your friends will show up for you. Yeah, we have friends across board, and friendship should be nurtured, and not necessarily by money. You can call your friends, you can greet them, you can relate with them, and you can share information with them. They will report your event, whether you're a man or a woman. And better if you're a woman and you are able to relate. I also think that as you should also be able to use alternative sources. I run a station and I know our overhead for a month, it's huge. So if you tell me that you want me to support you, we have at WeFM here, we have 2 hours every day dedicated to women issues from Monday to Friday. We have also a huge number of staff. So I call, sometimes you even call the women, and what the information they have is still very, very far. And you worry and say, look, these people want me to give them media coverage, but even the subject matter we want them to discuss is still far off. So you still have that problem of knowledge gap that needs to be bridged. You still have a lot of women who are afraid of the media, thinking that they could be misquoted. You have a lot of other women who are afraid, thinking the media is expensive. So we need also that awareness, both on the side of the media, as well as on the side of the people, the women who want to use the media. And finally, I would say, please seek for alternative media. The social media is one easy way to get your words across. It is not that it is expensive, but it is also efficient. Some media houses today also quote certain things from Facebook, from bloggers. And once you are able to know what to put out there, it will work for you. I will close with an advice. Please, let us use the media wisely. If you want to be popular, it is good that you are popular on the positive side than being popular on the negative. A lot of people are trending, women also trending because of negative news. The social media does not forgive, and the conventional media also remembers. So in trying to balance all, as media people or as politicians, we have a duty to society. We must not always win elections. That's not the result. We should be able to organize to a point where we are relevant in policies, we are relevant in choices that are made. Our voices matter. Our voices matter in decisions that government made. If we achieve this, whether we have a huge number who have turned out to be successful people or not, but right now, in the nearest future, that will begin to tell. Once we are able to influence government policies by our numbers, and deliberately so, you will see that things will begin to change. So I want to say once again, thank you very much. Media is there to cause awareness, to create cultural divide, to break the barriers, but also media pays their bill. And I'll say thank you very much for allowing me to talk. I hope that all the women who have ambition to contest for elections are able to win their elections. And to the Kenyan flag bearer, Madam Juliet, I wish you the best. I hope you can win the elections. And hopefully after the election, we host this talk somewhere in Kenya. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Ben. That was fantastic. It's so important to hear from the point of view of a man who has over the years proven his he for she stand. And of course, like you said, it's not about winning elections, but being relevant. So thank you so much for sharing. I would like to also appreciate everyone who joined after we started, politicians, especially the politicians in our midst, are members of COWIP, and those joining us from Kenya, South Africa, UK, and the US too. Thank you so much for joining us. And it's about time we met our very last speaker. And she's someone that I've known, well, I heard about her once when I joined NTA, but she's been a blessing to me, just following her what she does and what her progress in media, politics, and all that. And it's none other than Devon Hamasion Mom. She's an award-winning broadcast journalist whose work experience expands journalism, development work, and politics. Her career started in 1998 with Nigeria's largest television network, the Nigerian Television Authority, where she worked for 12 years. Subsequently, she was employed with the BBC World Service Trust, currently known as BBC Media Action, as a TV trainer. This erudite journalist has several years of experience working with INGOs, NGOs on several projects such as the Malaria Prevention Project funded by USAID, Poverty and Associated Maladies Alleviation Initiative, PAMI. She also worked on a World Bank assisted project, Community and Social Development Project. Her foray into partisan politics caused her to take a shot at elective office in 2018 when she contested for the House of Representatives ticket for Kwande Ushongo constituency of Benue State. At the moment, Devon Hamasion Mom is focused on rebuilding her media firm, which has been in existence for 10 years. She is the MD and CEO of Famous Communication Ventures. Devon has a degree in mass communication from Benue State University and an MSc in management from University of Liverpool. She is married with children. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us. It's good to have you. Please welcome her. Thank you, ma'am.
Well, thanks a lot, Chinenye. I hope everybody can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay. I laughed at the beginning because I was afraid you were going to mutilate my name, but you did a good job. So thank you very much. Good day, everybody. I don't know if I should be asking this question at this point, but I just want clarification so that I can remain on the straight and narrow. I know the theme of what we're discussing today is women politicians and the media, but that is so broad. I should have asked this question earlier, but certain mitigating circumstances did not allow me. Which aspect really should I be, like focusing on? Can you hear me?
Please, can you ask the question again?
Yeah, I said, I know the theme of what we're talking about today is women in politics and the media, right? But we've already, it's pretty broad. So what can I narrow it down to so that I don't take up too much time?
Thank you so much, ma'am. Please feel free to take a stand. You're free to take it from whatever point you want to. It's pretty broad, of course, and it's a conversation that needs to continue because even the first two speakers and our invited guests, I've said, gone to totally different poles, even coming together in the middle. But please feel free to talk about what concerns you and, your own, because you have a cross between politics and media. So you have that. You can talk from a point of view of a politician and also media. How do they help? How do they walk hand in hand? Wherever it comes to you, we've given you the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, to be very frank, although the media is my constituency, I would love to speak in very lofty terms about it. The reason being that the media in Nigeria is so poorly funded, be it public or private, that in many instances, news does not get reported because it is newsworthy, but rather because somebody has paid for it to be reported. I'm sorry. And just as the last speaker said, Mr. Ben, just as he said, there are actually media outlets that go to social media platforms and borrow stuff from the blogs or people's personal opinions and put that out as news, only to have to retract the information 24 hours later. So they get that information, they don't even cross-check, and then they feed it to the public. So for people who prefer to wait on traditional media before accepting any news, they also get swindled, so to speak, because this traditional media that they believe in so much, that they're relying on so heavily, is also relying on social media for some news. So sadly, I must say that professionalism in the media sector in Nigeria is heavily compromised. And I think that that is largely because of inadequate funding to the media. Why that is the case, I don't know. Now, let me quickly give an instance. When I ran for House of Reps in 2018, it turned out that on the day of the primaries, hoodlums, accessed the venue and destroyed everything. So the primaries were not properly held. I firmly believed that, gunfire was exchanged between police officers and the hoodlums and so on and so forth. People were running for dear life. Some of the INEC officers were actually wounded, physically injured. I thought, of course, this all happened in the rural areas. So I fully expected that by the time I would come back to the city, it would be headline news in every paper. Mute. There was no indication that any of such thing happened. And it was a big deal. It wasn't in any paper. So except for a few eyewitnesses who filmed what they could while it was happening, there was literally nothing to prove that the Kwande Ushongo primaries went down in flames as a result of violence. So I'm sorry to say that the media in Nigeria has been compromised. Now that said, I want this to be as interactive as possible. Well, most of us are women on this platform, right? Especially those who have queued in to listen. Am I right? Okay, so I want to throw a question back at us, and whoever can answer, that would be lovely. If I can get 1 or 2 responses, that would be fine. What really do women want when it comes to politics? What do we want? Do we want to be taken on the same level as our male counterparts? Or do we want the powers that be to cut us some slack because we are women and we have been disadvantaged over a while? What really do women want? Which of the 2 scenarios do we want? Does anybody want to say something? Which one would be more appealing? To be kept on the same pedestal with our male counterparts, or to be cut some slack because over time we have suffered on the wrong side of posterity?
Please, Honorable, please go ahead. I see your hand up.
Thank you very much. And appreciation to that question. But what I would like to say is that anytime we approach politics as women, definitely you're going to lose. And I'm going to say this having campaigned for the presidency in Kenya and having done media interviews. And one of the things that I educated everyone that was going to interview me, that you are not interviewing me as a woman. You are interviewing me as a leader. And immediately you start that narrative that I am a woman, you disadvantage me as a presidential aspirant. And it is very important for us to understand that we are leaders. And so gender does not come in leadership. There are good leaders who are women and there are bad leaders who are women. We have bad leaders who are male and good leaders that are male. So that what we want as women is just a platform for us to sell our ideas, to sell our manifestos, for us to be known, and we're not going there as women, because being a woman does not qualify us for anything. But being a leader, being a stateswoman who has an agenda, either for their constituency or for their state or counties in Kenya or their country, then at that point, we have something to say and we want to engage at that level. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm assuming that most women would probably go with the flow of what the lady who answered said. Now, in Nigeria at the moment, The party I belong to, the APC, chose to do women a favor this time around by allowing women to only pay for the expression of interest forms, which came to just slightly over 1 million naira. Had we been placed on the same pedestal with our male counterparts, women would have been required to buy those forms at 10 million naira. I don't know if anybody is hearing me. You get my point. That happened because we were women. How many women who are running can afford to cough up 10 million naira only to pick up a form? We're not talking about logistics. We're not talking about the fact that you're going to engage with the media and you don't do that with your 10 fingers. You have to put some money in there. And that is why I asked the question. If we insist that we want to be taken on the same level as our male counterparts, these are some things that we need to take into consideration. There's nothing wrong with being taken on that same level, but these are things that we need to be prepared for. You cannot say you are a man's equal, and then when it's time to pick up the forms, you go cap in hand and say that, no, you should cut some slack. That's not how it happens. Now, the next point I want to make is this. If we choose to best the men, I think globally has been dominated by our menfolk. It's not just a Nigerian thing. We must go out there and be twice as masculine as the men. There's this mentality some women politicians bring to the table that is really not good. Many women politicians come to the game with the aura of, I'm the only woman who is participating in this thing. So women should seek me out. Women should automatically be drawn to me. Women should automatically vote for me. That's not how it works. Even these men who eventually get political office, they go out of their way to woo women groups. You see them, they are friends with this woman leader of one market, the woman leader of the village, the CSOs. They go around and they make friends with women groups. Then cut to the woman politician. Many sit down and expect that since I'm the only woman running for office, all women should just vote for me. That's not how it goes. Women have to do twice the legwork if we want to be placed on the same pedestal with our menfolk. They don't slack. And that's why most of the time they win. And when I say placed on the same pedestal, at crunch time, you know, all of these things happen in the that's where the real electorate is. That's where they vote. Most stated were at home. Now, in the run-up to the primaries, I didn't have any youth within the party circles. That is simply a softer way of saying thugs. So I didn't have youth in my team. And one day I was sitting around minding my business, and one of them actually approached me. He said, see, you are my sister. We're from the same clan. Your opponents have all approached me to come and work with them. You haven't said anything to us. Is it that you think you're too big, you don't need anybody to help you? Of course, I had to say no. You find yourself making deals with the devil, essentially. And when it comes to dark things like that, the men almost always beat us hands down. There aren't many women, I for one, could not, I accepted having them around me as bodyguards, but when they say, bring some money so that we can go and hire arms and ammunition and stuff like that, that was where I drew the line. Because I knew I wouldn't be able to live with myself if something went wrong and in the course of firing in the air, as they claimed they would do, somebody died. I couldn't make funds available for that. I chose not to. But my male counterparts did. All three of them. We were four, and I was the only female. And I was the only one who didn't have armed thugs. All the other three did. One was the incumbent, one was the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and one other fellow who was a top-ranking civil servant. They all had armed thugs, so that if things weren't going in their favor, those people would come in and scatter the place. And that was exactly what happened. Most women can't do it. So that is another disadvantage that many of us fail to see. In Nigeria, most of the time, the ballot is a mere formality. If you have people who are desperate enough to bring in armed thugs into the electoral process, and it happens very frequently. Most times, women can't do it. So we get disadvantaged in that sector as well. What about from home? If you're a single lady trying to run for office, sometimes because of our patriarchal society, you receive a lot of pushback from your family. Or you're not yet married. People will think that you are too big. You'll not be able to get a husband. If you become House of Reps, you go to the House of Reps, who will marry you? They'll feel intimidated. Then if you are married, your husband doesn't want you leaving the house at 10 p.m. in the night to go for any meeting, where 95% of the people that will be there are men. So there's also that. So the factors militating against women's success in politics in Nigeria goes way beyond just media reportage. However, when it comes to the media, I'm sorry to say this, sometimes you have to buy that publicity. That's what everybody else is doing. So when you don't buy the publicity, you don't get as much coverage as you would ordinarily have wanted. Right now, even if you go to social media, you'll find that quite a number of influencers are pushing a certain presidential candidate. It didn't happen just because they like the size of his face. Many are being paid to do that. And when you have a media system that is heavily compromised by whoever is bringing the most money, whatever you're doing has to be so newsworthy that whether they like it or not, they must report on it. And that usually is not the case. It's just another election. It's just another woman running for office. And while you're here feeling like, oh, they should just report because you're a woman and all that, your male counterparts are sending 50,000 naira to the news editor. They've given the reporter himself another 30,000 to use as transport and so on and so forth. And you're there sitting around waiting for somebody to cover you, just like that. Doesn't happen. So while I don't want it to seem as if I'm throwing my own sector under the bus, the fact remains that media has been extremely underfunded, as a result of which they're easily compromised. So I would say that women, if we want to be placed on the same pedestal with our men counterparts, we have to best them at their own game. You need to be ready to carry thugs where there's need to carry thugs. I'm sorry. You need to bring out money where others are bringing out money. You need to be able to stand your husband down and say, whether you like it or not, I'm going for this 10 o'clock meeting that's happening this night. You have to look your father dead in the eye and tell him that marriage or no marriage, I don't care. I want to be a politician at all costs. These are the factors mitigating against the success of women in politics in Nigeria. So since we have agreed that we want to be taken at the same level as our male counterpart, we have to best them at their own game. I don't know how many of us remember Professor Dora Akunyili of NAFDAC. Good. I dare say that at a point, everybody forgot her gender or her sex, so to speak, because she was so efficient. And as a public officer, she left nobody in any doubt what she was doing. But you know what? She was very good to the media. That's what many people don't know. She didn't become very popular because she was highly skilled, highly successful at what she was doing only. No, she knew how to carry the media along. So this whole business of being a silent achiever when you're in politics is not the answer. You need to learn how to play the game and play it properly. You meet the men on their own turf and best them. So I think that's where I'll draw the line with my contribution. I hope I was able to make some significant contribution to the topic today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for being very real and sharing your truth and experience. And I know there's so much that we have to do. Like you mentioned, it feels as if the media indeed has been compromised. But I know that, you know, going forward, we can definitely make a difference, you know, where it matters. Thank you so much. I would like to call on Her Excellency to introduce herself once again and just say a few words.
Please hold on. Apologies, Ms. Ozo, for butting in. I first of all want to acknowledge the lady that spoke before while Ms. Devon was speaking. She apologized. I wanted her to get to introduce herself, but she had to speak. She's speaking at a conference in USA. She's also running for president. I think in Kenya, I'm not sure. She was supposed to introduce herself, but I think she's off platform at the moment. I also want to give an opportunity to Dr. Yemisi. If you have questions for her, because I know she has to leave, and I know people might want to have comments, questions for her that she can answer before we go to Her Excellency, I can call you that right now, who is running for president in Kenya. Thank you. So please, if you have questions for Dr. Yemisi, please go ahead and ask her questions. It's been such an honor. She's given us a long time. All our speakers are pretty busy people. Thank you so much. Over to you, Ms. Ozo.
Thank you. So please, if we have any questions for Dr. Yemisi, please let's raise our hands up and just indicate by raising your hand, put up the hand icon and ask your questions. Thank you. Sorry, if you don't have any questions, please, I'd just like to ask this, Dr. Yemisi, can you shed more light on the digital disparity that you were talking about, or digital inclusion that you were talking about? If you can shed more light on that.
Yeah, I think what I was trying to say there was the fact that digital inclusion has several levels around, for example, costs and reach. And I spoke there specifically in terms of the kind of women who are able to participate in politics. So like the second speaker said, it's not just the educated board women, but women in the grassroots, in the rural areas, etc. So to what extent do they have equal opportunities to access digital platforms that have become so critical in political communication? You know, to what extent are they able to join in these online conversations? Are they able to attend these kind of events, right? And therefore empowering them to be able to participate in the same way that some of our candidates on the call are. So digital inclusion in that sense, in order to widen participation beyond the women in the boardroom, as the second speaker said. But also in terms of looking at digital tools for things like e-voting, electronic voting, virtual voting, those kind of things, again, to widen access, because we saw in the pandemic how we all went virtual, right? And in the peace and security space, for example, a lot of these agreement meetings and peace building meetings often happen physically around a table with limited spaces for women, but actually because now it went virtual, went on Zoom, you saw the young lady in X village being able to participate, right? Okay, so it's the same thing in terms of voters' rights and being able to physically vote. when we're able to have these digital platforms, we can again expand that ability for people to vote. It's interesting, if to move on from that conversation, it was interesting the way the last speaker, Devon, was able to kind of really paint, this is how it is, kind of thing, like it or not, the picture. Because I just found it really sad that, well, that is the playing field. And it's like, is this how bad it has gotten? And it's, so kudos to you for being so plain and say, look, this is it, this is the facts, like it or not, this is how it is. The fact that the media landscape has become so compromised is a big issue, in terms of just democracy, not to talk of the gender angle of things, and the fact that politics is that violence and is that debt that you have to pay for armed thugs, and the truth of the matter is, most women would not want to, would do exactly what you did and not pay for those ammunition, and they shouldn't have to. So I think there's a balance we have to strike between saying, look, women decide it and you just got to get with the game, and to actually speaking more broadly, like I did with my presentation when I spoke about gender parity more broadly, and say, actually, politics in Nigeria has gotten to a point where we need to have major redress, right? Because it shouldn't have to be like that. Currently, I'm based in the UK. The government, the Prime Minister has left his post, has resigned, and there's re-election for leadership of the government. And amongst that kind of scramble for the leadership were several women. I'm pleased to say that in the coverage so far, I've not seen any gendered approach to reporting of it. But then also, I'm very sure that none of them are having to pay for thugs or bodyguards, that kind of thing. So the playing field, the environment is very different. I don't know, I'm sure Kenya, the Kenya candidates on the call will be able to share the experience in Kenya. But I think there's a broader issue here that goes beyond the gender issue of the fact that this is the playing field of politics in Nigeria. And I think it is not acceptable that that is the playing field. I think there's a wider discussion there. It is not acceptable that media is bought in the way it is, because that is not how it's supposed to be. So there's so many things that needs to be fixed irrespective of the gender discussion. And frankly, like I said, we shouldn't even have to play the game, because that's not how the game should be played in the first place. So that's, some final thoughts for me. I see Madam Juliet's hand up. I'll stay on to hear your feedback and then sign off, if that's okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yemisi. In fact, you even answered. I was about to ask you to respond to what Devan said, but you have already done that. Thank you so much. What you answered is just pretty apt. All right, I would like to give the floor to Madam Juliet to comment on what has been said so far.
Thank you so much again, Oluwumi, and of course, Chineye. And in response to what Dr. Yemisi is saying, and absolutely wonderful breakdown from Tevan, it's where I started from. You can't not ignore what is happening in the 21st century. And she's put it out plainly as it is. And this is, and I don't want to give excuses here, but what I want to suggest is, women are very disadvantaged till today, and that's the reality. I don't want us to think that we are really, or we really have equal, we probably have the equal opportunity, but the question is, do we have equal accessibility? I think I put a comment in this chat here today. So the question is accessibility. And you will soon find out from the moment you put your name forward, and especially the top post, women are seen as women representatives. In Kenya, we've got women representative. So, I have all these interesting conversation. Why did you go to top post? Why didn't you stand as a women representative? That's what people see immediately. They don't see your experience. They don't see your leadership. They don't see whatever. That's where we are in African politics. And I'm sad to say that I want to agree with what Divan has said, and that's the reality of also in Kenya, where you see that we've had women who have come in. And I want to tell you here today that the Constitution of Kenya stipulates that a woman is a specified category that is given and should be in or allowed to contest. And what has happened in Kenyan election this year? You don't see a woman right now. I have taken that matter to court. I want to say here today. Why have I done that? Because I don't believe in silence. I believe in voicing, not just for women in Kenya, but for voices around Africa and around the world. And it's tough. As I said, it's not easy. That is what I said. Now, Kenyan politics is very interesting. Let me say that. And the minute you upset the what you call tribal and a tribal wings, or however you want to call it, or the male dominant. And so I will disagree a little bit with Ben, where he says that or suggests that women should, the issue of gender should not come in. I want to suggest here today that the issue of gender should be given a category which is also special. And I want to use the word special because for years, women have not been voiced or have been listened to. For years, women have been undermined. That is why we're in the situation we are here today. And that is why the UN ruled out that for 2030, we needed to put forward women, because left to men alone, women will always be at the back of the line consistently. And that applies also in London here. Now, thank you, Dr. Yemisi, for reminding people that in United Kingdom, we've got a leadership election within the Conservative government. I'm from the Liberal Democrats. Now, within the United Kingdom here, women are not only, especially ethnic minorities or ethnic communities, Africans and Caribbeans, we're not just facing the issues of media issues, but we are also facing another level of disparity, which is institutional systemic racism, which perhaps around Africa might not be fully understood as what we mean by that. So it's interesting to just understand how that media coverage would be given to an ethnic community person. And so I want to just bring that to your limelight here. So each time we see a media people not picking our politicians, you know, right now, if you don't pick up a politician who is ethnic community, what you're doing actually, you're letting us down, because resources, as Divan explained, and I explained to you earlier on, it should be up to you to come and support every single one of us. Ask us, what is your belief? What are you wanting to change? What are you wanting to transform? What is it that you want, you believe? If we are at the top right now, whether in United Kingdom or back in Africa, we are able to develop somebody, add value to that person. Somebody talked about adding value here today. So Dr. Yemisi, I just want to appreciate your organization and the way you want to bring women. I would love to see more stories of women being told around the world. I want to see stories. Some of us don't, what a typical day of me here, I can show you my phone. I wake up to 100,000 WhatsApp messages because I don't shy off giving this my number, right, to people, because I want to remove the biasness and to remove this kind of politics that we've seen historically, whereby we have created a system in Africa that presidential candidates are unreachable. So what have I done instead? I have shared my telephone number. Every Thursday, I'm able to answer as many questions as I can. I want to see a different Africa. In Kenya, I'm going along with the hashtags and I'm saying fresh politics. Why am I saying that?
My apologies, ma'am. that I need to interrupt you.
That's okay.
This is one of those conversations that is so dear to my heart. If we were here for 5 hours, honestly, if we didn't have other
Thank
things to do, I will just
you.
be here going on and on. I don't know if I see our speaker, Ben's hand up. I don't know, Dr. MC, do you want to respond first, or should Mr. Ben go ahead with his? Okay, he can
Thank
go
you.
ahead. Okay, Mr. Ben, please go ahead so that we get to listen to all sides of the story. I think we're still going to come back to the drawing board because I know that Her Excellency has a lot to share with us also. So sorry to interrupt you. Mr. Ben,
No,
are
that's
you
fine.
there?
Thank you.
Yes, I'm here. If you'll permit me to just use my voice alone, are you okay with that?
It's fine. It's fine.
Go ahead.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I want to react to two things. So one of them is the fact that Divan had said the social media may normal media pick when I said they pick information from the social media, and that sometimes the regular media have to retract. That's not just what I'm saying. I'm saying that to give credence to the fact that the social media has become very relevant and very important part of a media broadcast. So if regular conventional media is perceived to be expensive, you can begin to generate your own social media traffic. That's my support, and it's effective, it's efficient. You can use it very well to generate traffic, to pass information that is genuine, that is trusted, and that is directly to you. You'll be able to begin to reach your own community that you create, and that can be an efficient way to communicate to your people, to your electorate, and eventually to decision makers. So I'm saying it is a viable alternative that can be used if you can't pay. The other issue raised is that the media is compromised. And as a media person, I have done this for like 27 years. I've seen the evolution of the media. It is worrisome for me that we should be looking at this point to describe blanketly that the media is compromised. And not just because of credibility about what we do when it comes to information dissemination. And it will mean that we are compromised simply because certain women probably think that their information is not carried. You know, and this is me talking to you as a professional. The media is a business. It is a business. So it is also possible that access to the media can be first through payment. People can pay if you want information shared, carried on TV or on radio. But the media is also the NBC codes allows you access as a politician to the media house. And you can use that to reach out to the media houses to say, look, I have this information and I want to share it. As a politician, as somebody contesting for elections, our code allows you access to the media and you can use it. People may not know, but it's there and you can use it. If you check Nigeria, one of the key factors that affect stories that go on air is media ownership. While we have editorial policies, we also have media ownership. And check it, we have media owners. If you think media owners influence what goes on air, we have media organizations in Nigeria that are owned by women. Why have they not been able to speak up for women? In Abuja, for instance, we have 42 radio stations, and about 80% of the radio stations in Abuja are headed by women. Why are they not speaking for women? There should be something we begin to look out for inwardly. There is something that we are not exploring. There are numbers that can be advantageous to us, but we are not using them. I also think that media is a strategy. If you, Divan also alluded to the fact that some women and men pay for presidential candidates, pay for people to put their social media things on social media. They do it as men. Who says women cannot do it? Media is a strategy. You need a team. You need people who know what to paste, what to put, where to place your adverts. They know what stories to throw up. The media will begin to run after you to seek for interviews. There has to be a strategy behind your team. You are running alone, yes, but you need a team that understands what you are doing and understands how to sell your candidature. Until you do that, you will not attract the right media, whether you are paying. In fact, even if you are paying, you can pay for it and it will still be bad media for you because the strategy is not right. I say it's paid for. There's political access. I mean, we had some women during the APC presidential primaries, a woman came up, but I'm sure that even women will not have voted for her because of her own disposition. And I think it is bad media. She did not prepare for the media. So what she got after that speech was bad media. Her speech was not the worst, but she didn't do her homework well to send the right message to the public. I mean, right now, there is a governorship candidate for the PDP in Lagos State who is supposed to be a very popular actress, but she's been dragged on Twitter because of bad media. What did you post that makes it look like this is who you are, this is what you represent? I am saying not just that the media in itself are gatekeepers, but when you prepare well, and by the time you go out, whatever you're selling, people will want to buy because it has been packaged well. That packaging is what we need to do before the media can get access to what we do. Finally, I'll say to the presidential candidate, I'm not talking about gender, exclusion of gender discussions. I'm simply saying, if we are doing gender discussions, if we are discussing these issues, the problem that affects women, if you discuss them on a broad base, you will be able to see that you are dragging the other people's attention. People with disability, you're dragging men, you're dragging boys, and then you're also sprinkling that a lot with women issues. You bring a whole balanced diet that everybody will want to eat. That's my saying. And I say, make men part of your discussion. Boys are being talked to very scarcely now in schools, but girls are being educated. Girls talk about part, we talk about sanitary education, we talk about gender-based violence to the girls, to the exclusion of the boys, who in the future will marry them and God forbid will deal with them because they don't have education. Now we are talking about women in politics. We are talking about the men who will sit down and allocate them one role in a political party, and we are not including them in the discussion. I'm saying, don't make it look like we are fighting the men. Make it look like they have a role, and make them play with them in a way that they understand who you are. They are part of the discussion, and it works well for all of us. Please, I'm saying, let's get men educated. Let's not make it look like we are teaching them life all again. But the future is very dicey. If we don't take the right steps to make men walk or walk with men in this race, we will come back again and it will be like a war of reconciliation. It's possible to do this together, holding hands with men and changing the narratives, instead of holding hands only as girls and making it look like we are fighting the men. I want to support this cause. In fact, I believe in it. I'm a he for she, but I also tell the men, I'm giving you feedback as a man that sometimes the men just look at it and say, what will happen in 50 years? Are you sure we'll not be begging for our own space? So they are holding back. They are afraid. If you give them some confidence, they will allow you run. And once you have that little space, I know that Nigerian women, African women, and women all over are ready to take position. But let's do this well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ben. I see Devan is raising her hands. Please, do you want to react to or respond to what he has said? You're muted. Sorry, Devan, we can't hear you.
Okay.
All right.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I think he got me completely wrong. I think he stopped listening from the point where I said, I do believe the media is heavily compromised. And that is not to say that everything about the media is wrong, but the truth is, in many instances, I mean, I'm not talking about Abuja, where everybody tries to put up a front and do things the right way. The minute you leave Abuja, that is when you begin to experience Nigeria for what it is. Back in my state, for instance, except if it's a government function, if you do not transport these journalists to the place where that newsworthy thing is happening, there's likely going to be a blackout. I'm not kidding. Something like primaries, for instance, it's meant to be a newsworthy activity. The primaries I was a part of was not covered. There was all this violence and everything, and because there was not a single media, not a single journalist was there, nobody got to hear about it, except for those of us that were on the field. So I think he needs to open up his mind to the fact that in many instances, very many instances, if you want coverage, You have to go out and look for them and bring them in to come and do that for you. That's what I have experienced. Now, also the social media thing. I wasn't even talking about what you said about social media at all. I was only making an extra point to buttress what I said about the traditional media being compromised, okay? That was when I mentioned that sometimes traditional media even go to blogs, social media, and so on, pick stories without verifying and put them out there as fact, only to recant 24 hours later. So I wasn't even talking about his, the allusion he made to social media. Of course, if you cannot afford traditional media, you can go the social media route, which is very good. Now, on a final note, and please, I'll not take more than 2 minutes of your time. I really feel that, and maybe this sounds old-fashioned, but please hear me out. I really feel that if we continue to tell our men folk that we want to be treated as men, we are going to be heavily disadvantaged. Hear me out. Until we have a situation where we make room for the fact that women are women, men are men. They will keep putting these meetings at 12 p.m. and 1 p.m. because they know it's to the woman's disadvantage. Even if you're a widow or a divorcee, by the time you're going out 12 midnight, 1 a.m., in no time at all, your reputation is tarnished. We can't run away from these things. But if we force them to recognize the fact that as women, we need to be cut some slack. We are not men, that's the fact. We are special and important in our own way. They are special and important in their own way. We need to find a level playing field where both important parties can make a difference, which is why I brought this whole issue of, in the APC now, with 1 million naira for expression of interest form, a woman can run for House of Reps. Men are paying 10 million. So we need to speak with a voice. And I am saying that we should insist that our politicians should note the peculiarities that we have. If they are going to treat us as men, the level playing field will never exist. It will never exist. Because when the male politician comes with his thugs, you are supposed to turn up with your own thugs. Women candidates are threatened with rape. They get beaten up on the field and nothing happens. Most people don't beat male candidates, so the thugs will fight amongst themselves, but a female candidate will get beaten up because she's a woman. And we are saying that people should not recognize the peculiarities that come with the disadvantages our gender has faced over time that puts us on the wrong pedestal. If we insist on being treated as men, we will never have a level playing field. They must make provision for the fact that our peculiarities are different from those of men, yet we are as intelligent, we are as important, we can deliver just as the men do, but we are not the same. So that's my point.
Thank you so much, Stefan. Wow, there's obviously so much that we can discuss on this topic, and we are running out of time. You know, they say time is not our friend when we are having, you know, a discussion that we really need to listen to, that would make so much impact in our lives. I wish we had more time to talk about everything, all the pressing issues that we have. And I just noticed that one of the persons that raised their hands is out of the group, so he can't ask his question again. But I would like to hand over to the convener, Olawumi Heavens, to wrap up the meetings. Thank you so much for all the contributions, Excellency Devan, Mr. Ben.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I want to say thank you to everyone who joined us today. Thank you so much. It is not all the time you get such insightful conversations. Of course, indeed, it's a conversation that we really need. And I want to say thank you. As I said earlier on, it's actually a conversation that is really close to my heart, because not just because I'm in media, but I see the correlation between media and politics. And just as Devon said, I agree with you honestly, because I think that in fact, some things should actually be changed in terms of people should start having their meetings during office hours, as opposed to the middle of the night. because it has nothing to do with male or female. Yes, you might be able to just go out, but for security reasons, you shouldn't even be having your meetings at 2 a.m. And, you know, I think if things are structured right the way they should, we will not be excluded as women. And I also agree with some of the things that our speakers said, most of the things I must say, because of course we will have different points of views, but I appreciate what every speaker contributed, the fact that we have to work, the fact that Ben also mentioned the he for she. We honestly need the men on our side, and I'm one of the avid believers that media has work to do in terms of educating the next generation. There's some things that we probably will not totally get now. We're fighting for them. We're struggling to get them. It's almost like we're working, you know, for the next generation to come and harvest it. But if there can be a mindset shift, whether through movies, media, which is some of the things that AWIPA is working on, to ensure that we create content where it's natural for the upcoming, you know, people to know that women are born leaders, natural born leaders. And I think last month when we had the conversation about politics, I shared the fact that I had to run for an office in an international NGO years ago. And I can remember someone saying it to my face that a woman should not be given this position. I wasn't going to run, but that conversation in itself made me run. And I honestly, I'm raising my son to know that women, I mean, there's no difference. He does what his sister does. He has to clean, he has to do this, he has to listen to her speak. And I think that media can do a lot more in terms of working on the next generation, even as we are working to make sure that we take a stand and occupy the space where we're supposed to occupy. So I just want to say a big thank you. Thank you so much for everyone who joined from the various countries, Kenya, Ghana, UK, US. I want to thank Your Excellency. I'm going to be calling you that now. In fact, we had two, I think, presidential aspirants on the platform today. So I want to say thank you to them, especially because they invited so many other people to also join us, even though they had to leave. But thank you so much to the speakers. Thank you to the people who participated. Thank you to Ms. Ozo also for being an amazing moderator on the platform today. For those who have sent their emails, is so that we can reach you and send communications to you to be able to partner with you. Of course, Your Excellency will be speaking later on, so that you can reach our speakers also. And of course, we know we're doing much for Mr. Ben. Maybe we should pack our bags and we're off to Kenya next. So I want to say thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for joining. This program usually takes place every month. 20th, we have different topics and we bring in fantastic speakers, not only speakers, but people who are proactive to make sure that they take a stand and go beyond the conversation. Thank you once again.
Thank you for having me as well. Thank you so much. I'm blessed. And above all, let's change Africa. Let's change to bring good leadership, because what is important is, as I said, and I will not stop saying it, is bringing in good leadership around Africa. If we continue with the same old politicking and media, what happens is we deny ourselves justice. And that is why I'm here. I saw this. I had to literally cut a meeting. And Divan, thank you for saying it as it is. I share your experiences because I am a candidate. I was the only woman candidate in Kenya who stood as a presidential candidate, not as a vice, but as the top post with the Republican Liberty Party. And to get there, let alone to get there, nominations that you hear Divan is talking about, right? In fact, it's another level. And I just want to remind the men, and I wish it could be that easy. I just want to love you all. Thank you for a great platform. I've put your comments in the, we've got many of the presidential candidates. I put this program in there. That's how Wairimu came. She's an independent candidate. Now, what is interesting, as I said earlier on, as you leave here tonight, many women candidates were disqualified. How come? We had over 50 something. I don't even know the number, I've lost the track now. 50 something candidates came forward and you end up with 3 candidates. How? So I leave it there. See you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It's so obvious that this conversation can go on for 5 hours. We need to come out with policy documents. Thank you so much, Devon. Thank you, Yemisi. Thank you, Ben. You guys are amazing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ben and Yemisi. We love you. It's been great to have you here.
See you soon in Kenya.
Yes.
Thank you, Devon.
Now,
Kenya.
Nigeria, keep peace. I'm watching your election in Nigeria, and I can see your Peter Obi. Is it Honorable Peter Obi? I'm watching you closely and watch us closely.
We're watching yours too. Kenya is up in August, so we're watching you guys. So we have to go now. Definitely see you guys next month on the 20th. Have an amazing night or day wherever you are.